Hi, welcome to this series of reading with me through my book, Parenting with Purpose and African Wisdom. My name is Dr. Gladys Mwiti. I'm a clinical psychologist and specialist in traumatic stress at Oasis Africa Center for Transformational Psychology and Trauma here in Nairobi. We continue with chapter 5 of my book, and today's section on limit setting is negotiation and limit setting. Because as children grow, we negotiate the limits and we don't entirely remove them, because a child needs to learn how to self-express in a responsible way. We use African proverbs in this book as well as biblical proverbs. Today's African proverb is from Ethiopia, and it says, "The fool speaks, the wise man listens." And then the biblical proverb is from Proverbs 16 and verse 32. "Better a patient man than a warrior, a man who controls his temper than one who takes a city." What's the meaning of these proverbs? The Ethiopian proverb, "The fool speaks, the wise man listens." This proverb carries valued insight that wisdom does not abide in many words. Wise parents do not argue with their children or carry on shouting matches where no one hears what the other one is saying. They listen carefully. And finally, in a few words, a parent speaks out and provides a sense of direction. They listen because they are not giving orders, but including the child wisely in the final conclusion. This does not mean that a parent always gives in to the desires of the child. This is neither parenting nor is it wisdom and maturity, giving in to every wish of the child. Listening makes the child feel heard and included, resulting in admiration rather than anger and contempt for one's parent. The biblical proverb, "Better a patient man than a warrior, a man who controls his temper than one who takes a city." This proverb has much to say for patient parents and those who do not give in to anger while communicating limits or enforcing the same to their children. It is easy for parents to lose their temper, especially when dealing with teenagers who seem set to break every rule or to answer back without much respect for their parents. These young ones seem more controlled by their peers than by their parental expectations. Actually, teenage years sometimes have been called a tumultuous period, tumult up and down, and not quite sure exactly what to do and what to become. That's adolescence and teenage for you. When parents remember the pull their children are going through, when we remember this tumult in their lives, these children sometimes remain dependent against desiring to become responsible, independent adults. So sometimes they are pulled to dependency, sometimes pulled to independence. This will remind parents to remain as the mature, wise ones so as to ensure safety as the family travels through the adolescence period of their child. Parental conquest with humility and firmness carries the day than obedience, which is derived by force and violence, because that's not truly obedience. We have mentioned the word negotiation as a way of adjusting parental limits for the maturing child. Limits shift but they are never removed totally. As the child matures, limits will shift, but they are never removed entirely. And the shifting should be a shared parent-child process involving consultation and the child involvement in limit setting. Negotiation involves parental active listening. It stops a parent's propensity or desire for them to lecture continuously with the expectation of absolute obedience, no matter what the child feels about the demands made by the parents. Negotiation does away with mindless commands and parental dictatorship that usually contribute to child rebellion. Negotiation involves communication, and it sets a pattern that is carried into the life of the maturing child. Navigating life challenges typically causes anxiety, apprehension, and fear in the child. This is why no loving parent should ever desert their maturing youth at this critical time when encouragement is of utmost necessity for assistance and validation. So as a child is pulled this way and that during teenage years, parental closeness is necessary to validate the positive growth of the child. It is true that young people may appear to rebel as they enter their teenage years. That is true. But this is also a normal process. It is called in psychology individuation. Individuation is a child moving out of childhood towards adulthood. And that shift can be anxiety-provoking both for parents and the children. All parents desire that their children grow up to become independent, emotionally healthy adults. So how will they learn to be dependent except by acting independent? However, when young people begin to test life away from parental control, they seem to be pushing hard against parental limit setting, as if to demand that the limits be removed. Now, such a child is not asking for limitless freedom, but is longing for parental engagement to help them define and clarify new limits. It is the same way that when a young person outgrows their pair of shoes and the fast growing foot is pushing hard against the leather, the child is not asking the parent to do away with shoes, but is non-verbally requesting for a new pair, a bigger pair. In limit setting, where there is healthy communication, the young person feels free to come back to the parent for clarification and encouragement to move on and face new experiences with courage. Growing up is scary. More than ever before, our children have to deal with loads of difficult, often confusing information. Will your child be free to discuss those difficult matters with you? Or will they feel condemned when he brings up a sensitive, thought-provoking matter? Various studies indicate that many children are beginning to dabble, for example, in pornography very early in their lives. Availability of internet at home, cyber cafes, and cell phones, as well as unguided use of the same, is often ground for confusion and temptation for many children. Question: do you as a parent know how your child is using the internet? Pornography can quickly lead to addiction to the images, as well as early sex exploration, followed by sex addiction. Beyond images is actual early sex involvement. With the onset of HIV and AIDS, and even sexually transmitted diseases, there is a global pressure for use of contraceptive devices for children and the license that the children have a right over their bodies. This pressure for children to have a right over their bodies can translate in two ways. It can translate to a right to say no to sex, or a right to engage in sex. Let me quickly add that in their desire to lower the prevalence of HIV and AIDS, sexually transmitted diseases, and even teen pregnancy, many sexuality education programs do not emphasize sexual abstinence. The emphasis is on child reproductive rights, but abstinence actually assumes the ability for children to control their sexual urges, making them full participants in their own protection. Full participation includes training children in skills to develop self-control, the ability to use their minds over their bodies, and so to order their own behavior. We know that God has given us faculties that, if used, are enhanced, and what is not used is lost. We also know that as one of these abilities, self-control can be translated to other areas of life as well. Self-control in matters of sexuality won't be evidenced in other matters of behavior, because the child won't be able to order the self to do the right thing when other alternatives present themselves. This is more so in the areas of indulgence and physical urges like diet, use of drugs and alcohol, and even other inclinations. If sexual education curriculum writers do not include self-control in the children and youth training packages, and international bodies mostly leave it out of proposed guidelines, if parents do not take action, who will teach our children that acting on their sexual urges can be delayed to adulthood? Currently, parents should worry about school curriculums that may soon tell your 8-year-old that he should pack his math books along with his condoms. That's a big concern. Secondly, there is also the pressure by human rights bodies agitating for legalization of alternative sexuality for lesbians, for gays, and transgendered. That if any child begins to explore an alternative lifestyle, that desire should be respected as a human right. I have nothing against people who choose alternative sexuality. My take is with leaving the fact that a child enters adolescence when sexual feelings start in their life. Attraction can sometimes feature as infatuation with the same gender. Maturing animals sometimes mount each other within the same gender. However, the animal soon learns that sexual expression is supposed to be between those of the opposite gender. Now, animals are guided by instinct. In the creation hierarchy, human beings are above animals. They have a God-given ability to choose and exercise boundaries in their sexual expression. However, no child is born with knowledge to make wise choices. It is only wise adult counsel and guidance that can empower children to make wise choices. Who will teach your child these limits and reinforce the same boundaries as a young one matures? Clearly, it is neither the classroom, it is not their friends, and it is not the media. This responsibility is left to you as a parent, to a church mentor, or to whoever you have chosen to partner with you in parenting and in collaboration with the same. The battle for your child is on, dear parent, and you can make a choice as to who will win. We have mentioned the fact that no one else except the child should have a right over their own body. This is a noble premise that is aimed at stopping or discouraging sexual abuse. Teach the child no one else should use their body. They have a right to protect themselves. However, someone else has a right over our bodies. This is our Creator God. If you read the Bible, you remember these words. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. That is from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 to 20. So parents, as we conclude this section, does your child know that she did not appear but was created fearfully and wonderfully? Psalm 139, verse 14. Does your son know that he is answerable to the Creator as to how he uses his body or lets others use it? Do you as a parent model this stewardship over your body before your own children? In these days of free sex, immorality, infidelity, these are very heavy questions. As a parent, you cannot ignore them because you are a steward over the lives of your children. Parents, that's the end of this section. Keep thinking, discussing these matters. Get a copy of the book if you do not already have it. Go to Keswick Bookshop, Textbook Center, or get the book online at Amazon. Thank you.